Today, President Biden is set to sign a short-term deal to delay a partial government shutdown after the measure passed late Thursday. The stopgap measure, it shifts the funding deadline to March 8th and 22nd, granting lawmakers slightly more time to get full-year spending packages passed. Joining us now, we've got Brian Gardner, Stifel Chief Washington Policy Strategist. So we're just kicking the can down the road once again here, perhaps just getting past Super Tuesday at this point. I mean, that would have had some different political implications here, but what most notably, once we get closer to that date, are the elected officials currently in Congress and the president going to need to find some serious solutions around?
Yes, actually, I don't think it's so much Super Tuesday. I think the optics of having a government shutdown with the State of the Union coming up would have been very tough for Republicans. So there are optics there, but more for the State of the Union. What needs to be done next? Well, there is a sense that there's an agreement on the top line numbers and that the two sides are coming together on the guts of individual spending bills for the rest of the fiscal year. The question is, can Speaker Johnson keep enough of his Republicans on board to support it? Because he's only got a two-seat majority right now. As we all know, there is a group of conservative Republicans who will not vote for anything. They're never going to vote for any of these spending bills. They're never going to get the concessions they want. And without those, they'll never vote for them. So can Johnson get enough of his Republicans on board to get these through? I think we're heading in the right direction. I feel a little bit better than I did a couple of weeks ago about this. But the May 1 deadline to avoid sequestration is looming. And so that is an issue.
One of the other big issues, obviously, Brian, facing the re-election potentially of Biden, or really the general election looking ahead to the potential Trump versus Biden matchup in 2024, is how voters are feeling right now about the economy. We got that consumer sentiment reading at the top of the hour showing the first decline that we've seen in just about 3 months. I'm curious, from your perspective, what you expect to hear as we look ahead to the State of the Union, just in terms of the Biden camp, their messaging when it comes to the economy, and what they are going to try to do to shift that messaging leading up to November.
Yeah, I mean, the consumer confidence numbers had been riding a nice trend, and I thought there was a possibility that they could give, if the trend continued, it could give Biden a boost. We'll see how it plays out longer term. The message, I think, is going to lean into, I'm on your side. The economy is performing well. We're out of the inflationary period. Wages are outstripping inflation. And here I am fighting for you on healthcare, on bank fees, on travel fees. I'm on your side. That's the message. I care about you, and I'm the better choice to look out for your interests. That's the message you're going to hear.
What should investors who are continuing to pay attention to each economic data point that comes out and paying attention, perhaps more so to the Fed than they are to politics, how should they be tracking the marrying of the two, at least in commentary right now?
Well, I think on the fiscal side, it's mostly noise right now, right? There's not a lot that's going to be done on fiscal policy. Regulatory policy is still important as the administration looks to wrap up its regulatory agenda before the first term runs out. I mean, next week we're going to have an SEC meeting on the climate disclosure rule. So you're going to see a number of those issues. But I think investors are quite correct to pay more attention to the Fed, because that's where more of the action is. The political side, the fiscal side, for the time being, for the rest of this year, is really mostly noise.
Brian, one of the big topics that we've been talking about now for several months, but specifically this week, has been the pushback that we've seen down in D.C. when it comes to M&A activity. We had the Kroger-Albertsons lawsuit here from the FTC earlier this week, the Journal piece about the probe into United Healthcare. I'm curious, if Trump were to win in 2024, do you expect at all a shift in policy or stance when it comes to M&A activity, or do you think it's going to be more of a continuation maybe of what we've seen under the Biden administration?
I think it leans more to a continuation than a lot of people appreciate. Some of the M&A antitrust moves that the Biden administration has undertaken originated at the end of the Trump administration. The Biden administration kind of took the ball and ran with it. Now they've gone further than a lot of Trump people may have wanted to go, but that's where the starting point was. And when you look at some of the statements that are coming out from kind of populist Republicans, especially in the Senate, J.D. Vance of Ohio, for instance, they're more they praise FTC Chairman Khan. They're more in line with an Elizabeth Warren view of some economic policies, but certainly on antitrust. So this populist movement within the Republican Party is shifting the way that a lot of Republicans look at antitrust. And so for those who think that there's some big M&A boom coming if Trump wins, I think they're going to be sorely disappointed because I see a subtle shift. I don't see a big shift.
Do you think, Brian, some of these mergers are going to continue or even eventually get approved despite some of this pressure that we've been seeing down in D.C. from the FTC and the DOJ?
I do, mostly because I think lawyers to the parties involved in the mergers have gone into these advising their clients to be prepared for litigation, structure the deal in either in a way that avoids litigation or be prepared for litigation. And I think those that have happened more recently, they're attuned to what's been going on. This is not a surprise, and so I think they will probably dig in and fight to get the deal approved. And until there's a shift in thinking among the courts, we haven't seen, the FTC and the DOJ have lost a number of suits. I think a number of these more controversial deals will ultimately get approved.